Welcome back, Nick Lenz novel review. This is episode 22, and this book is not either a Star Trek, no Star Wars book. It's sci-fi, and it's something I've been a fan of for the past decade. What is it? Doctor Who. This is Doctor Who and the Web of Fear. Now, this is a reissue of a novel that was already released back in 1976, originally published by Tangent. Target Books. They're the ones who originally published the adaptations of the classic Doctor Who serials. This was the 72nd book published, but as for the actual episode itself, when it originally aired back in 1968, only a couple years from now, will be the 50th anniversary of the serial. This serial was aired from February 3rd to March 9th of 1968. This by far, even though I've seen bits and pieces of the actual story, I actually saw the first full episode of this. It's only I think it's 6 episodes long, if I'm not mistaken. Is it? Yeah. It's only 6 episodes. And the novel does a good job of adapting these episodes really well. They even throw in little stuff like historical notes, like what people talk about, like they're referencing the stuff that happened in the Abominable Snowman. Yeah, the Abominable Snowman is basically the predecessor to this very story. I don't know if this was basically, if that book was reissued or not. I do not know. I've seen bits and pieces of that particular story too. Let's see. Yeah, it was reissued a few years ago. Of course, I've never read the original novel, but this is one of the most recent novels they released. Okay. This came out just this past April. Yeah, it was one of 4. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books that came out on April 28th of this very year. Just by sheer coincidence, that's also the same day my nephew was born. So basically, this is as old as my nephew. Yes, I am an uncle. I became an uncle this year. This book is only 152 pages. It's not that long of a book. Look how thin this book is. But if you are a Doctor Who fan, I highly recommend you track down these reissue books, so you have to look for the older books that came back in the 70s that Target Books published, because those books are hard to find. I have very rarely found Doctor Who novels, but this I read all the way through, and I read every single page. And I kind of remember what happens in the year, and this is a damn good story. It's simply put, basically, it's set in present day in 1968. Well, somewhat anyways. Basically, apparently it's implied that it's been 40 years since the previous story. If this is taking place in 1968 and it's been 40 years since the Abominable Snowman, that means that the story took place in the 20s, not the 30s, as it basically sort of stated. Yeah, it's a bit of a controversy. It's a bit of a confusion exactly when this story takes place. My theory, it takes place in present day of 1968, while the original story takes place in 1928, before the Great Depression happened. Yeah, in this story, if you're familiar with the entity known as the Grey Intelligence, who showed up for one of the 11th Doctor's Christmas specials, he showed up a few times. Basically, of course, that time was kind of like the first time he's ever met the Doctor, per se. The Grey Intelligence is a great villain. Now, he appeared only for this story and the Abominable Snowman in the classic era. He never officially reappeared until he appeared for a couple stories of, I believe it was series 7. Yeah, it was a couple stories of series. Actually, it was series 6. Yeah, he appears for the first appearance of Claire Osgood. Oswald. Yeah, he appears in that very first appearance. Well, technically, it's her second. It's her return. It's one of the many versions of her. They kind of explore this in series 6. But this book is damn good. I highly recommend it. If you can find it, which is pretty simple to find. But I was so happy when I saw this at the library. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to read you because I love Doctor Who. I've been a fan of this since I saw the David Tennant episodes 10 years ago. Of course, I didn't watch them when they originally aired. I watched them via marathon. I watched every single episode of Series 2. And when I found out about the character Devros and the fact it was other Doctors aside from David Tennant, I'm like, why not check out these stories? That wasn't until I found out that certain episodes of the first 2 Doctors are missing. Currently, for whatever fear, at least one episode is missing because a few years ago, before 2013, there was only one episode that survived of this very story, and that was episode 1. The other 5 stories were never found until a few years ago when they were found, where they found all 5 episodes, but then 2 years later, they found episode 3 was missing. Now, episode 3 is noteworthy for the introduction of Brigadier Alistair Ledbridge Stewart, though in this story he's a colonel. And of course, the end of this does lead sort of a setup for UNIT. And this is kind of related to the UNIT era stories because this is one of the 2 stories that kind of basically lays the groundwork for it. The other, of course, is Revolution of the Daleks, which basically is the 20th anniversary of the series. I have not read the novel adaptation, but I've seen the episode. It's really good. Now, from what I've seen from this story, it's exciting. It's compelling, and I keep thinking, though, why not bring back the Yeti? The Yeti are such interesting monsters, and yet here's the weird thing. They brought back the Great Intelligence. Why not bring back the Yeti? I would love for the Great Intelligence to reappear and kind of do this kind of story, kind of do like, what if, let's say, they kind of did a semi-remake of this very story, but have it done in present day, but do similar things that the original story did. Like the web itself going over London and take over London Underground. I mean, I'm sure that the fans probably want to see a sort of a modernization of this very story done with a different Doctor. Just switch out the Doctor and the companions. Simple as that. Though at the time when this story came out, Jamie Cremant, who actually had appeared in every single second Doctor story, except for Power of the Daleks, he missed that one. He was actually first produced in the Highlanders. They also had the character of Victoria, who was the second female companion of the Patrick Troughton Doctor. The first 2 companions he had for just the one episode until Jamie got added was Ben and Polly, who were the last 2 companions of the William Hartnell era. And Jamie himself is played by an actor named Fritz Hines, and Fritz Hines has a great job both in the original story and, of course, I've only seen Justin Doctor Who. I haven't seen anything else, but this story is such damn good, and it's very enjoyable. If in fact they can't find episode 3, my personal hope is that they do an anime restoration of the actual episode. I mean, it's not that hard. They did it for Power of the Daleks, and that was the entire story. All 6 episodes got restored. I mean, I was able to watch the first 3 on BBC Online, BBCAmerica.com. I have not been able to watch the last 3 episodes of that particular story. But that was the first. This actually came from Patrick Troughton's second season of the show, and this overall was the. Let's see if I can find it here. This was the. Let's see. It was the 5th story from season 5, but it was the 41st story. 44th serial that came out for the classic Doctor Who era. Yeah. I don't want to spoil too much of the story, but it's just so good. And I give this a 10 out of 10. This is great. Okay? So, that's it for this episode. Stay tuned for the next episode, which is episode 23. And hopefully I'll do my other Doctor Who book I've got, which is, well, why not? I'll reveal it. Let's just say it's an adaptation of one of the greatest Doctor Who stories ever told. You'll find out. Oh, I forgot to mention, the book is written by Terrence Dicks. Now, the author himself has been dead for the past 6 years, but they kept his name on the book. My guess is they probably did that because, well, and I'll also point out, before I go, this is the same exact cover art they did for the original novel that came back in 1976. Yeah, there's really no change to it at all. The only change they made to it is the fact that, well, the only thing I can tell, especially when they had the original cover Wikipedia, the only change they made to the cover was they took off the Target logo, which was over here in the corner. That's the only change made to the cover because, well, I don't publish my Target books anymore. So I guess, like, okay, so... Oh, and also, I should also point this out, take a look at the spine. That is a well-done spine. And also, like some of the other modern books tend to do nowadays, just like movies, they have a picture on the side of the book. A lot of the modern-day books actually do, in fact, do this. I haven't seen this for older books, per se, but I've only seen this for the newer books that have come out in the past decade. Or at least, like, the last, like, 15, 16 years, tops. Okay? Alright, that's it for this episode. Episode 24, which, like I said before, I'm hopefully going to review it. The next episode is going to be on the another Doctor Who book, which is an adaptation of one of the greatest Doctor Who serial stories ever told. Okay? Until then, I will see you there. Bye. Oh, one other thing. The Yeti's roar. A flushing toilet. I am not kidding. Look at the Yeti. They have some interesting backstory when it comes to these guys, and I'm really hoping, like, I'm planning to do another video where I said I'm gonna end it, but I'm planning to do a video of top 10 monsters I want to see in the current Who. Okay, so bye.